It was supposed to be just another ordinary day in my perfectly controlled life. Instead, it was the day I realized I'd been blind for 41 years. I'm Daniel Richardson, billionaire, founder of a medical tech empire, the guy people write magazine profiles about, the man who sees opportunities others miss. At least, that's what I thought. But that afternoon, standing behind the curtain of my private home office, I watched my cleaning lady, a 54-year-old woman who'd worked for me for 8 years, slip 3 cans of food and a bottle of children's medicine into her worn bag. My system had flagged it. 4th discrepancy in 2 weeks. Always small things. Always when her access card had been used. Her name was Carmen Santos, and at that moment, I was sure of one thing. She was stealing from me. Before I tell you what I saw when I followed her, and how it changed not just her life, but mine, do me a favor. Hit like, share this story, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what country are you watching from? I really want to see how far this story travels. All right, let me take you back to the moment everything started to crack. The thief in my mansion. From my office, I watched her on the security monitor. Same routine as always. Hair pulled back. Old sneakers. Uniform perfectly pressed. Movements precise, almost military. Only this time, there was that bag. Those cans. That medicine. The inventory reports glared in my head like alarms. Pantry. 2 cans soup. Storage closet. 1 kid's cold medicine. Kitchen shelf. Chowton 1-pack pasta. I could hear my CFO's voice in my head. If you ignore small leaks, they become big ones. I told myself it wasn't about the money. It honestly wasn't. I spent more on a single bottle of wine than on everything she had taken in weeks. What burned was the idea of betrayal. She'd been in my house for 8 years, seen my passwords, my routines, my mail, my trash. She walked past my safe, past my documents, past my life. And this was how she repaid me? When Carmen turned off the kitchen light and headed toward the staff entrance, I'd already made my decision. I grabbed the keys to my old gray Honda Civic, the one nobody associates with me, and left the Bentley behind. For the first time in a long time, I decided to follow someone. The neighborhood I'd never seen. She drove an old 2008 Corolla. I stayed 3 cars behind. The further we got from my neighborhood, the more the scenery changed. Clean sidewalks became cracked concrete. Wide lawns became tiny strips of struggling grass. Streetlights grew farther apart and dimmer. I'd never been in that part of town. Not because I thought I was better than them, just because in my world, my car usually went like this. Mansion, highway, office, highway, mansion. Everything else existed only as shapes on my GPS. After about 20 minutes, she pulled up in front of a sad, tired building that looked like it had been built in the 70s and forgotten since. Paint peeling, balconies rusting, windows patched with tape. I parked down the street and walked slowly, trying not to look like a billionaire in the wrong movie. From the hallway window on the 2nd floor, I could see straight into her apartment. And that's when everything inside me shifted. The stolen food. Inside, Carmen was carefully placing plastic plates on a small folding table. Beside her stood a boy, maybe 10, and a younger girl. They both sat in mismatched chairs, like they were about to eat at a 5-star restaurant. She reached into that same bag, the one that had set off my alarms, and took out the cans. She opened them carefully. Poured the soup into a pot as if it were something precious. The kids watched every movement with shining eyes. And I realized she wasn't reselling that food. She was feeding her children. With cans my kitchen staff would have eventually thrown away. I watched the boy stare at those cans like they were treasure. I watched Carmen count the spoons. I watched a billionaire's definition of loss crumble in real time. And something ugly hit me in the chest. I had never, not once in 8 years, asked Carmen if she had kids. I knew her punctuality, her reliability, her work speed per square meter, but I didn't know her. Still, I wasn't ready to feel guilty. No, instead I thought, if she's stealing food, what else is she stealing? Information? Access codes? Documents? Billionaires don't stay billionaires by ignoring questions like that. So on my way back to the mansion, I made a decision. I was going to find out everything about Carmen Santos. I had no idea I was about to uncover something far more uncomfortable. Not about her. About me. The file that punched me in the chest. The next morning, I was in my office 2 hours earlier than usual. Not for a deal. Not for investors. To open one HR file. Carmen Santos. Age, 54. Position, residential cleaning specialist. Years of service, 8. Absences, 0 unexcused. Reviews, exceptional, flawless, dependable. Salary, $20,800 per month. I stared at that number. $20,800. For me, that's what dinner for 4 with wine looks like. For her, it was rent, food, transport, medicine, everything. I typed in her address. Pulled up the building on Street View. It looked even worse in daylight. I clicked on rental estimates for that area. 2-bedroom apartment. Around $400 a month. Half her income. I did the math. $2,800, $1,400 rent, $1,400 left. Divided by 30 days. Less than $47 a day. For 3 people. And that's without counting electricity, transportation, clothes, medicine, emergencies. I closed the laptop, but the numbers wouldn't close in my head. I tried to work, canceled 2 meetings, stared out the window at people walking by like little moving dots. For the first time, I wondered, how many of those dots go home to choose between paying the electricity bill or buying food? That afternoon, I drove home early, and what I found there surprised me again. The guest room that wasn't mine. I parked down the street and watched the cameras from my phone. Carmen arrived. Staff entrance. Same worn bag. But instead of heading straight to the kitchen like usual, she went to the guest room at the end of the hallway. I barely remember that room. No one ever stayed in it. On the screen, I watched her open her bag and pull out 2 school notebooks, a pencil case. She placed them carefully on the bed, smoothing the cover with her hand like it was something sacred. That's when it hit me. Her kids. They were doing their homework in my spare room. Learning, studying, growing. In a space I'd forgotten even existed. For 8 years, Carmen had been sharing my house with me in a way I had never noticed. Her world inside my world, fully parallel. Completely invisible. The guilt I'd been running from finally caught up to me. I pressed the intercom. Carmen, can you come to my office, please? The conversation that broke me. 5 minutes later, she knocked and stepped in. Hands still damp from cleaning products. Uniform neat. Face composed. But I could see the worry. Is there a problem, Mr. Richardson? It was the first time I really looked at her. Not as cleaning lady. As a person. Wrinkles around her eyes I'd never noticed. Hands older than her age. Shoulders carrying years of weight. Sit down, I said, gesturing to the chair. She hesitated. In 8 years, she'd never sat in my presence. Please. She sat on the edge of the chair, ready to bolt. I started with the easy bomb. Your children. They do their homework here. Her face went pale. They're quiet, Mr. Richardson. They don't bother anything, I promise. It's just that there's no quiet place to study in your apartment. I finished for her. She froze, then nodded once. The building is old. The walls are thin. There's always shouting, noise, TVs, neighbors. They can't focus. Here. It's quiet. I took a breath. And the food you take? The color vanished from her face completely. Her hands tangled together in her lap. I can pay you back. You can take it out of my paycheck. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. I'm not asking you to pay me back, I said. I'm asking why you felt you had to take it. She let out a small, bitter laugh. With all due respect, Mr. Richardson, men like you don't like women like me asking for more than we already get. She held my gaze. I learned a long time ago it's better to solve your problems quietly. Not men like me. Rich, powerful, protected. Suddenly I wasn't the one being analyzed. I was the one being exposed. I stayed quiet. Carmen stood up. I'll get my things and go. You don't need to pay me for the rest of the week. Sit down, I said, more firmly than I intended. I'm not finished. She sat, chin high now, dignity radiating from a woman I'd barely seen until that day. In 8 years, I began. You've never been late. Never left anything undone. Never complained. Never caused a problem. And all that time, you were raising 2 children on a salary that barely covers the basics. I looked at her. It makes me wonder, Carmen. How many other people work for me in the same situation? How many other invisible lives exist around my success that I've never even bothered to see? She studied my face, as if trying to decide if there was any point in telling me the truth. Finally, she said, "It makes you an ordinary man, Mr. Richardson." That stung more than any insult. Most people live like that, seeing only what touches their own lives. The difference is, you actually have the power to change things, if you want to. Silence sat heavy between us. Then I said the words that surprised even me. Carmen, I'm going to change your salary, our company policies, the way things work around here, not as charity as correction. She opened her mouth to object. I continued, "But first, I want to understand your reality. All of it. Would you allow me to meet your children properly? Have dinner with you?" She blinked, like I'd suddenly started speaking another language. "You want to have dinner at my house?" "If you'll have me," I said. She watched me for a long moment, deciding. Finally, she nodded. "Saturday night, but don't expect anything fancy." She left the room. I stared at the closed door, realizing I had just made one of the most important decisions of my life. I wasn't just about to find out who Carmen Santos really was. I was about to find out who I really was. The file I should have asked for years ago. The next morning at 8 sharp, I called Rebecca, my HR director. "Rebecca, I need a complete survey." "Of what?" "Of everyone we pretend not to think about," I said. "Cleaning staff, security guards, kitchen, maintenance, salaries, cost of living, family situations, second jobs. I want real data, not sanitized reports." She stared at me. "Is there a specific issue? Just do it, quietly." By 11 a.m., she came back with a folder that felt heavier than paper should. She sat down slowly. "You sure you want the truth, Daniel?" "That's why I asked." She opened the folder. 47 support staff. 31 earning less than $3,000 a month. 15 with second jobs. 8 sharing apartments with other families. 3 working while sick because they can't afford unpaid days. She added quietly, "Carmen is one of them. And no, she never complained." Then she looked at me. "Daniel, all of this has been true for years. You never asked." "Why now?" I swallowed. "Did you know Carmen lets her kids study in my guest room?" "Yes," Rebecca said simply. "I approved it with the house manager." "Did you know she takes food home? Food that would be thrown away?" She nodded. "Yes. And you never told me," Rebecca sighed. "With all due respect, when was the last time you asked about the personal life of someone who doesn't sit at your board table? They're invisible to you, Daniel, not because you're cruel, because you're comfortable." That hurt, because it was true, and comfort is the cruelest kind of blindness. Dinner at Carmen's. Saturday night, I wasn't walking into a gala or a board dinner. I was walking up the worn stairs of a building that smelled like fried food and detergent. I'd faced investors who could destroy my company with a signature. I'd negotiated contracts worth hundreds of millions. None of that made my hands shake like knocking on Carmen's door did. She opened wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt. No uniform, no badge. Just Carmen. Punctual as always, she said with a small smile. The apartment was spotless. Old TV with a distorted screen, sofa with cushions strategically covering tears, folding table in the middle of the room, set like it was ready for a celebration. "Mr. Richardson," a small voice said. I turned. A thin boy with bright eyes stood there. "You must be David," I said. "Yes, sir. Mom says you own the house where she works." "That's right. And what do you want to be when you grow up?" He lifted his chin. "An engineer." "Like me?" I joked. "No, sir, better." He grinned. "I want to build houses that don't fall when it rains. Our last one did." My smile disappeared. "What happened?" Carmen came in from the kitchen with a tray. 2 years ago," she said. "The building was too old, too damaged. Heavy rain finished what time started. We lost almost everything." "And your daughter?" I asked, remembering the little girl. "Sophia's at the neighbor's, doing homework with a friend. She's shy with new people." Carmen set down the tray. "Nothing fancy," she said. "Chicken stew, rice and beans." It smelled better than half the overpriced meals I'd had in my life. During dinner, I learned more about Carmen in an hour than I had in 8 years. David is top of his class, but has no computer. He uses the public library on weekends to do research. Sophia loves drawing but uses lined notebook paper because sketchbooks are luxury. Carmen works 6 days a week. After cleaning my mansion, she cleans law offices at night 3 times a week. "Why didn't you ever ask for help?" I finally asked. "A raise? An advance? Anything?" Carmen and David exchanged a look. Then she said, "People like you help causes, Mr. Richardson, not people. You donate to charities, sponsor foundations, but sitting across from someone and asking, 'What do you really need?' That doesn't happen often." I had no defense. After dinner, while she washed dishes, David proudly showed me his notebooks. Equations, drawings of machines, notes written with such care, it hurt to look at them. "Where did you learn this?" I asked, pointing at a fairly complex equation for a 10. Rice and beans. It smelled better than half the overpriced meals I'd had in my life. During dinner, I learned more about Carmen in an hour than I had in 8 years. David is top of his class, but has no computer. He uses the public library on weekends to do research. Sophia loves drawing but uses lined notebook paper because sketchbooks are luxury. Carmen works 6 days a week. After cleaning my mansion, she cleans law offices at night 3 times a week. "Why didn't you ever ask for help?" I finally asked. "A raise? An advance? Anything?" Carmen and David exchanged a look. Then she said, "People like you help causes, Mr. Richardson, not people. You donate to charities, sponsor foundations, but sitting across from someone and asking, 'What do you really need?' That doesn't happen often." I had no defense. After dinner, while she washed dishes, David proudly showed me his notebooks. Equations, drawings of machines, notes written with such care, it hurt to look at them. "Where did you learn this?" I asked, pointing at a fairly complex equation for a 10-year-old. "YouTube," he said casually. "There are videos for everything. Sometimes the internet cuts out, so I wait." That was the exact moment something inside me snapped. It wasn't pity. It was anger at a world where a brilliant kid has to wait for a shaky internet connection in a noisy apartment building while a man like me spends more on a watch than on his family's yearly groceries. When I left that night, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The meeting everyone feared. Monday, 4 p.m. The main conference room, usually reserved for investors, partners, giant deals. That day, the chairs were filled with people who usually never set foot on that floor. 47 support staff. Carmen in the third row, Luis from night security, tugging awkwardly at a borrowed tie. Maria from the kitchen, looking around like she'd accidentally walked into a movie set. A faint ripple of relief passed through the room. I'm here to do something I should have done years ago. I'm here to apologize and to correct. I clicked the remote. A spreadsheet appeared on the screen. Not profits, not projections, salaries, rents, numbers of dependents, second jobs. This week, I found out that 31 of you earn less than $3,000 a month, I said. That 15 of you work 2 jobs. That 8 of you share apartments with other families. That 3 of you go to work sick because you can't afford unpaid days. They watched me silently. I found out Carmen uses my house as a study space for her children because their apartment is too noisy. I found out Luis sleeps in his car after the night shift because he shares a room with 2 other families. I found out Maria sells her diabetes medicine sometimes to buy school supplies for her granddaughter. Carmen's eyes filled with tears. For 8 years, I continued, Carmen has worked in my home perfectly. Not a single complaint, not a single failure. And all this time, she was taking food from a pantry fuller than I can ever empty to feed her children. I took a breath. That ends today. Not because I'm generous, but because I realized I've been a hypocrite. I build technology to save lives, while the people who support my life struggle not to drown. I pressed the clicker. New numbers appeared on the screen. Effective immediately, all support staff salaries will be increased by 100%. Your pay is doubled starting this week. The room exploded in emotions they tried to swallow. Hands over mouths, disbelieving laughter. Carmen gripping the back of the chair in front of her. Luis just started crying. I continued. Second, we're creating a comprehensive educational fund. Any child or grandchild of an employee who wants to attend university will receive a full scholarship. Tuition, books, housing, everything. No debt, no conditions. Maria stood up and quickly left the room. Someone went to check on her. She was in the hallway, sobbing into her hands. Third, full family health insurance for all of you and your families, including dental and psychological care. No copays, no tricks, no fine print. I heard someone whisper, that can't be real. Fourth, we're building an in-house daycare, I said. No one should have to choose between working and caring for their children. Then I looked directly at Carmen. Carmen, I said, you will lead a new department, employee welfare. Your new salary will be $8,000 per month, with a clear path for advancement. Because someone who raised 2 brilliant children on $2,800 a month knows more about resource management than half the MBAs I've worked with. Her hands flew to her chest. Tears streamed down her face. But there is one condition, I added. I don't want this to be just an internal policy. I want a movement. I want to find other invisible Carmens out there in other companies, other sectors. I want us to help them see what I've been blind to. I clicked to the last slide. A photo of David, holding up a notebook full of equations. This is David, I said. Carmen's son. He wants to be an engineer. He dreams of building houses that don't fall when it rains. He's 10 years old and already solving equations that confuse me. And until last week, he was doing it in a crumpled notebook, with spotty internet, on borrowed time. I looked around the room. From now on, David will attend the best schools in this city. Then, the best university we can get him into. Completely funded. Not as charity. As an investment, because this world needs people like him. Then I turned to Carmen. Carmen, will you help me turn this company into a place our children would be proud to work at? She stood up slowly. 8 years of invisibility weighed in her eyes. I accept, she said, voice trembling. But I also have a condition. I smiled. Name it. And that this isn't about guilt or charity, she said. That it's about dignity. That you recognize we've always deserved this. And that you just finally decided to see it. I nodded. Deal. We shook hands. The room erupted in applause. Not the polite kind. The raw, shaky kind that comes when people realize the ground is finally shifting under their feet in a good way. The phone call that meant more than any deal. Later, after everyone left, Carmen lingered. She approached my desk. Daniel, she said. It was the first time she'd ever called me by my first name. Why did you really do this? I thought for a second, then told her the truth. Because I realized I'd built an empire on the invisibility of brilliant people, I said. And I decided I'd rather be remembered as the man who chose to see, instead of the man who kept ignoring. She smiled. A soft, peaceful smile I'd never seen on her face before. You know, she said, in 8 years of working for you, this is the first time I feel like I'm working with you. That night, I picked up my phone and called David. David, this is Mr. Richardson. Yes, sir? His voice was small but excited. You told me you want to be an engineer. Yes, sir. Then get ready, I said. Because we're going to build houses together one day, and I promise you, none of them will ever fall. On the other end, I heard him shout, calling his mom and sister. It was the sound of hope becoming reality. I've closed billion-dollar contracts with less satisfaction than that one phone call. 6 months later. 6 months after that meeting, business magazines called me CEO of the Year. Harvard wrote a case study about my company. But none of that is what I'm proudest of. On my desk right now, there's a photo of David, 11 years old, at a science fair presenting a model of earthquake-proof housing. Carmen runs a department of 15 people, visiting other companies, helping them implement policies that treat workers with dignity. Luis from security bought his first house. Maria paid for her grandson's surgery. 47 families changed their lives. More than 200 companies reached out, asking how to copy our model. I received letters from people I've never met. Thank you for seeing us. Carmen walked into my office one day and said, You didn't change the world, Daniel. I raised an eyebrow. You just decided to see the world that was always there. And she's right. The biggest discovery I made wasn't about poverty or inequality. It was about humanity. For years, I'd walked on polished floors cleaned by hands I never noticed. I'd eaten meals made by people whose names I never bothered to learn. I'd slept peacefully while the people protecting my house slept in cars. Now I know. True power isn't measured by how many people work for you. It's measured by how many people rise with you. And the sweetest revenge against social blindness isn't punishment. It's awakening. Waking up to our shared humanity. That's the only success that really matters. If Carmen's story and mine touched you, do this for me. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever felt invisible where you work or study? Like this video so more people see it. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that they deserve dignity. And subscribe for more stories that prove one simple truth. Sometimes, the biggest miracles don't happen in hospitals or boardrooms. They happen when someone finally chooses to see the people who were always there.